Hello and namaskar. This is Jugal Paul greeting you from Nath Conversation Studio. I welcome all the esteemed viewers of this program, followers of this program, who have been witnessing it since last 6 months. I welcome them all. Uh, these conversations are basically being authored by a galaxy of luminaries, and their whole purpose is to catapult us to touch and transport the consciousness, our consciousness, the holistic consciousness, to the realms of the civilizational essence and its shades, the civilization which belongs to all of us. So that is how it is, and I personally feel that uh, these sweet anecdotes, the encounters, first-hand encounters, beautiful insights, they all orchestrate. They all orchestrate the beautiful symphony, the melodious symphony, the enchanting symphony of bonhomie, of love, of brotherhood, of place consciousness, of esteem, and whatnot for the entire diaspora, and also for our people who are into the research and who are the real seekers. Their purpose, their noble purpose, it also serves to an extent. I really feel to specially thank you again for your association to this program since last 6 months, and you have helped this program to grow and graduate into a conglomerate, memorable, historic edifice of shows, which will be regarded into the annals of history and which will be remain a reference point for all the future generations of our diaspora or anybody in our country or abroad. So once again, I feel we have the 28th landmark show today, and on the 28th landmark show, we will be definitely pleased to again welcome all the people who are witnessing this program from across the country and the globe. Today's show is a very unusual surprise. It's an unusual surprise, and it's an enchanting, broadcast, and it's an exotic, anecdote to unravel the gorgeous, magnificent country which is in our extended neighborhood, and its serene geography, its colors, its zest of life, by none other than one of the tallest scholars, contemporary scholars of India of our times, literature, and the traveler. We know about the Central Asian countries, the Central Asia, as well as we go to the past records, we have felt and seen and read also that from the times of Kushans, before that and after that, we had shared a common legacy of culture, a common legacy of, social dimensions and elements in those times. And these common legacies have scattered and have remained in the forms of folk elements, living customs, and other things. So that is how the Central Asia has always been. And Central Asia is a beautiful country which was there, before Glasnost and Perestroika. This was a part of the USSR, and then these countries became independent probably in early 1990s. And the one Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, and all these countries together, they became. And there are excavations, archaeological excavations, which corroborate this view, this ancient legacy of especially the Central Asia, with that of shared with that of India, the Vedic times, when the culture was Hinduism, and culture of Buddhism, culture of Zoroastrianism. Zoroastrianism is again an import from the Vedic times. It went to the Iran and then traveled back to the Central Asia, and then of course of late Islam as well. So today we are going to pick up and one of the country, one of the beautiful mountainous, exotic highland country,
and it's nestled with water bodies, rivers, and lakes, and flora and fauna, and the inspiring peaks, and all the beautiful things, and the culture and the people, gorgeous folk, their customs and culture, and all the things, their connection, ancient connection with India. So that is today's topic. It is Tajikistan. Tajikistan is the country we are going to talk about, and Tajikistan, probably Tajikistan. Today's another great announcement is that we have a very very special guest, Padam Shri Dr. Kashinath Pandita ji, who will be authoring today's show. He doesn't need an introduction. It is his second show on Shitalat Conversations. Firstly, he had come on the rarest of the rare personality show, because he is the rarest of the rare personality. And today we are going to. He is one of the tallest personality and a scholar of a global eminence, and he has worked. He has worked. He's one of the tallest authority on the Central Asian studies and research, and he's an author, translator, and historian of Central Asia and Persian studies. His books are very widely acclaimed, and they are widely in demand across the globe. And he has written many papers, presented many papers across the globe. He has traveled in very very far destination, from America to Geneva to US to Germany to Europe, and the Central Asian countries, including all these countries: Tajikistan, and Kyrgyzstan, Russia, Moscow, and he has studied in Iran under the great guidance of a legendary personality of global eminence, Zafiul Safa, Zabiullah
Oh,
Safa, Zabiullah Safa Sahab, Dr. Saab, who is known for his contribution, immense, monumental contribution to the Encyclopedia Iranica. So he's a very multifaceted personality. I would talk about two of his books, which he has translated from Persian. That is the Baharistan Shahi and Tahfutul Abab. I mean, those are such a wonderful translation with his notes and remarks. It has changed the entire paradigm of the the medieval Kashmir, history of medieval Kashmir. Till this time, it was in the Iron Curtain. It is Dr. Saab which has lifted this curtain with his translations, and it has changed the entire paradigm and the perspective, and brought reality to the fourth of the world and the people of Kashmir. So it is very difficult to describe such a vast reservoir of knowledge and wisdom. He is also a human rights activist who has represented our country, and he has also represented the people. Besides that, he also represented many people not from our origin. That certainly signifies his very large heart, his humanism, and probably all his work, and the work areas in which he has worked, whether it be his travelogue, or be his translations, or the books and the literature and the papers. All these things are there for integration of humanity. They are to help humanity, propel humanity in a better way and happy way. So that is the greatness of Dr. Kashinath Pandita. So today, certainly, this is a great moment. We are going for a very, very exotic location, a country we shared past, certainly ancient and medieval past with us. But then again, most of the people don't know about it. And Dr. Saab has been the first person who has gone into this entire length and breadth of this terrain of Kazakhstan, and then and the length and breadth of this area. And finally, he has been able to research and write literature. His famous travelogue, My Tajiki Friends, is a very very popular document. It has been translated in many languages, especially in Russian. He's a very popular name. And so, I mean, I don't know, I mean, how much story I know about him. It is better to ask him to explain these entire bounties of his travels and the stories of Tajikistan. He has been many times, and visited many times. So let's welcome Padam Shri Dr. Kashinath Pandita.
thank you.
Welcome, sir.
Namaskar.
It's a great delight to welcome you onto the Sheetal Nath Conversations 28th show. And certainly, we are very much elevated. We all feel so much blessed to have you with us.
Thank you very much, Kolsab. So kind of you.
So, sir, thanks a lot. Again, a delight. Again, we feel very elated, and it's an honor to have a guest like you with us. And before we start, today's topic is related with you. It's all about your journey, your research, and your exploration, and your literature, your contribution, your witness of Tajikistan, the beautiful country. And certainly it's very dichotomy of our times that we don't know, although we shared a very very wonderful past during the times of Kushans and after Kushans and pre-Kushan times as well. And there are many many similarities from the Vedic times, part of their culture. They might have synthesized to a different dimension, but they are there. But then again, I mean, there's people don't know much about it. So today, just give us a brief about the geography and the history of Tajikistan, as witnessed by Padam Shri Dr. Kashinath Pandita.
Thank you, Kolsab. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak about Tajikistan and to give my reminiscences of my visit and my association with many people, scholars, students, friends, and travelers of Tajikistan. I think you will begin with the geography of Tajikistan because Tajikistan is not much known to many people, including many scholars in our country. Not only that, even Central Asia, its history and culture, was also very little known until 1991 when the Soviet Union had to withdraw its forces, the incursion into Afghanistan. And then the world and Indian erudite scrambled for knowledge about Central Asia. But by that time, I had covered some field and I was in demand for some time. At many universities in India, many institutions began to open up for studies in Central Asia and its republics. Uh, I'm reminded of a very small incident. It's about 20, 25 years ago. The president of Tajik Academy of Sciences, his name was Muhammad Asimov. He visited India. From Delhi, he called me and I traveled from Srinagar to Delhi to meet him. In the course of our conversation, he said, Professor, we if you have to travel from New Delhi to Dushanbe, the capital of Tajikistan, now it was the Soviet time, you have to travel all the way from New Delhi to Moscow, and then from Moscow you have to come back almost close to New Delhi, and it takes one day. Isn't
Centralized.
there any way that we can straight away fly from New Delhi to Dushanbe? It should not be more than an hour and a half. I just listened to what he said, though I knew what hurdles lay in the way, but not to displease him, I gave a call. I had a friend, additional secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs dealing with Central Asia.
Oh,
I gave him a call and I told him that the president of Tajik Academy would like to see you for a few minutes. He gave us
oh,
appointment and we went.
that's so wonderful.
So I opened the issue with him that why can't we fly over Kashmir or some other route instead of going to Moscow and coming back to Dushanbe. He took us, me and Asimo, into the ante room of his office. There was on the wall, there was a big map of Central Asia, Kashmir, Northern India, and Central Asia. He removed the uh, curtain from the map and he said, look, this is the map. And if we have to fly from Delhi to Dushanbe, we have to cross over K2, K2
Okay,
Himalayan
to
mountain peak.
mountains.
And this falls in Pakistan. And Pakistan is not allowing our air transport from this way. And
Oh,
if we take this route, if Pakistan allows, it is 45 minutes from Srinagar to Dushanbe. Uh, what I mean to say is that the contemporary politics and short sightedness of politicians and human beings create so many difficulties in the way of peoples of the world of
yeah.
different regions meeting freely and exchanging their ideas freely.
Excellent. Excellent.
As against this, take the ancient times when Kashmir happened to be connected with the famous and fabulous Silk Route, which started from Xi'an in China, in Eastern China, and went right up to the Eastern European countries. We were part of that. And our caravans traveled along this long Silk Route, carrying so many commodities from Kashmir, medicines, herbs, skins, even paper, all the way. And even today in Bukhara,
Bukhara,
there
yes.
is a place called Sarai Hindwan, means the caravan sarai of Hindus. By Hindu, they mean Indians. I had an opportunity of visiting that caravan sarai, Hindwan, in Bukhara. It's a wonderful place. So there, the caravans from India would unload their merchandise to be transshipped to the European countries, and the European merchandise would be loaded and brought back to the Asian countries, including Kashmir.
Beautiful. What a
So we
spectacular.
had the relations in those days, but these relations were severed after India became a British colony. And what was more unfortunate was the 19th, mid 19th century great game of Central Asia. That means the great story of rivalry between the Tsarist regimes of Russia and the
Tsars.
British colonial empire. And they did not use their lands, but they used Central Asian lands to perpetrate their rivalry. And in the process, what we find in Kashmir today is the extension of the great game of Central Asia.
Oh,
The partition of India and The partition of Kashmir in 1948, 48, when the ceasefire in Kashmir was ordered, it was very closely linked to the great game in Central Asia. Now, leaving that apart, Tajikistan name is very late, is of very late origin. There was no country in Arab history or Persian history of medieval times by which mentioned Tajikistan as a state or a nation. But there was the ethnic community called the Tajiks.
Tajiks were there.
Yes, Tajiks, as against Turks or Turks. This is mentioned by Ferdowsi in his Shahnama. He says Tajiks and Turks. The Turks or the Turks are ethnically different from Tajiks, whereas the Tajiks are essentially from the Aryan stock. The Turks are the Turks or the Turkestan or what we call Turan. They are of Mongolide stock.
Tribal. Tribal.
Yes, they are of Mongolide stock, Turco-Mongolide stock. So on the basis of ethnicity, there is big difference, and so is the difference in language and culture and lifestyle. That difference continues even now. What happened? After the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917, the Soviet state came into existence. A big question that loomed large on the minds of Soviet planners was what to do with Central Asia. They called it Turkestan at that time.
Entire area.
Turkestan, as such, is not a small region. There are 7 states in Turkestan, 5 the old Turkestan, and 2 states in Trans-Caspian region, Armenia and Azerbaijan. They
Azerbaijan.
are
Nagorno
on the
Karabakh also.
Caspian side.
Nagorno Karabakh
But,
also.
but among these 5 states, even one state of Kazakhstan is larger in landmass than India. Even one state of Kazakhstan, out of 5 states of Central Asia, Central Asian republics, is larger than India in landmass, though its population is hardly 3 crores. You can imagine the vast steppes, what they call, uh, the Europeans called it steppes, but Russians call it steppes, Steppes.
Steps.
Sorry. So you can imagine the vastness of this region. And that was the question before the Central Asian planners of Soviet Union. It's a very interesting story. Excuse me. The Soviet planners, especially Lenin, in 1917, after the establishment of Soviet Union, issued a, an important statement It was titled Address to the People of the East. And actually, he meant to send a message to the vast Muslim population of Turkestan because they are mostly predominantly Muslims. All the seven states, except Armenia, which is perhaps Christian, Nestorian Christians. Now he wanted to assure the Central Asian peoples that Soviet Union would give them full freedom and rights and privileges and also ensure safety and perpetuity of their culture, language, and traditions. In that context, he appointed a committee headed by Stalin, which was asked to make recommendations of delimitation of these republics on the basis of language, culture, and other criteria. So in 1924, five Central Asian states, the Tans, what we call Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan. Tan is the corrupt, corrupt pronunciation of Satana from Sanskrit,
Ah,
means
oh,
place.
wonderful, wonderful.
So
That's very
he
knowledgeable.
carved out five Central Asian states plus two Trans-Caspian states, Azerbaijan and Armenia. Half of Azerbaijan had been captured, seized by Iran, and the other half by Russia. Among these five Central Asian states, Tajikistan was almost a new state that was created in 1924 and given the name of Tajikistan means the land of the Tajik. And it was differentiated from Uzbekistan, meaning the land of the Uzbeks. Those who are conversant with the history of Central Asia and Iran, they know that the Tajiks are the sister nation of Iran because they are the descendants of Aryan stock. They are Aryans, their physiognomy, their language, their culture traces its origin from in the Aryan stock. As far as the language is concerned, by strange coincidence, whereas in Iran, the modern Iranian language has drifted far away from its uh, ancient characteristics like pronunciation and syntax, etc. But Tajikistan has maintained the old syntax, old characteristics, and old pronunciation. You will be surprised to know that Tajiks do not pronounce it as Iran. They pronounce it Iran, which is the
Aira.
correct pronunciation. I am a student of etymology and I know why this is correct. Because in Avistic literature, Ir means a free man, an independent man, and Anair means a slave. Iranians call themselves free people. That's what Ferdowsi repeatedly says in Shahnama, that we are the free people, we are the I, the free people. And on is this is the plural of Iran. So Iran means the land of free people.
Okay.
Uh, the most important geographical feature is the river Amu, which emerges from Pamir and Badakhshan mountains and moves northward. It's one of the biggest rivers, named Oxus by the Greek historian Herodotus, Gihon by Arab historians, and Amu by the locals. More or less, it is known to everybody by river Amu. Now, this river is nearly 3 miles wide, a huge river. It has changed its course and has now disappeared. It has disappeared somewhere in the sands of Central Asia, in the Kizilkom or Karakum. Kizilkom is an Uzbek word. Kizil means black, Kizil means white, and Kom means sand, in the white sands. And there are two types of sands because Central Asia is a sand bound
Desert.
land. Two colors. One is the Kara. Kara means kala, black, and the other is Kizil. Kizil means white. Kizilkum means the white sand. The northern part of the steppes is the white sand. So this disappears. But historically speaking, Amu Darya has played a very important role in the history and geography of this region. The lands uh, beyond the Amu River, I said that Stalin made the delimitation on the basis of language, but many discrepancies were also done, which remain even today. For example, Bukhara and Samarkand, which were the Tajik speaking centers from ancient times and known as the primordial centers of Tajik culture, they were given to Uzbekistan. And this remained an irritant, a bone of contention between Tajikistan and Uzbekistan from 1924 to present day. They have not reconciled, Tajiks have not reconciled to the partition of their land in a very irregular manner. And the same thing happened in in Nagorno-Karabakh in Armenia. Nagorno-Karabakh was given to Armenia, whereas the Azerbaijanis claimed it, and there was a war last year, as you remember, there was a war on that. Now, other, after Tajikistan was created as a new entity, a new republic, it followed suit of other republics. That means the type of government and the type of political party, which is the Communist Party Communist Party of local communists, was empowered to construct their government. And Imam Ali Rahmanov, who is the present president of Tajikistan, happened to be the secretary of the Communist Party of Tajikistan. After 1991, when Tajikistan, with other Central Asian republics, declared their independence from Soviet Union, Imam Ali Rahman jumped from secretary's post to president post. He has worked hard, immensely hard, and has the full knowledge of his people and his country, and continues to be the president down to present day. This is, in short, a geography and history of Tajikistan. One important aspect of Tajikistan must be told. You know that prior to the advent of Islam in Iran, the Zoroastrian religion was the common official religion and the religion of common people. And the Zoroastrian religion has its own history, culture, its own dignity, philosophy, and dignity. And Zoroastrian culture had dominated entire Central Asia, the entire Turan, entire Mesopotamia, and northern, what you call today Khorasan, northern
Khurasan.
India, Afghanistan. This was the range of Zoroastrian religion. They were fire worshippers, and they were the branch of the Aryans. And their effect continued in your Kashmir valley for a long time. Even today, the remnants of those Aryans who call themselves Kashmiri Pandits today, they still maintain many traditions of Zoroastrian.
Zoroastrian, the
No
fire.
ceremony of Kashmiri Pandits is complete without fire. And even today, Kashmiri Pandits worship Agni as Devta, as Agni Devta. And from Agni, you have the Kashmiri word Ogun. And in English, you have the ignition. This is
Ignition.
Agni. And from Agni, we have the Atar. Atar, which in Arabic becomes Itra, the essence. Fire is the essence. And Zoroastrian religion, the greatest discovery was the discovery of fire. Therefore, fire was worshipped in entire region as I'm telling you. And you know there is a, a function which Kashmiri people today observe, that is lighting the candles and all once in a year, uh, lighting their candles, lashabudur and candles. This is in Iran, this is in Central Asia. I happened to be once on Nowruz. I happened to be in the mountains of Central Asia in Badakhshan mountains, and I was wonderstruck. I found the family and the mohalla where I live. They invited me to their functions. They observed all those functions of Zoroaster, which has been mentioned in Vendidad of Zoroastrian literature. They observed all those functions. And not only that, even it is said that Zoroaster was born in a very cold region in the east called Balk, which in Rigveda is Bakari. That is the Balk, where you had you, which you know because of uh, the highest statue of Buddha in Bamiyan. Balk and Bamiyan are close. A statue of 365 feet high statue of Buddha, which our good Taliban had great pride in destroying only some years back. So, one of the important characteristics of life, history, and culture of Tajikistan is their continued uh, uh, maintenance of Zoroastrian fire worshipping traditions. Even one of the major hotels in Dushanbe is called Hotel Avista. I have lived in that hotel for some time. for many times. And the whole function, linguistic functions, traditions, feasts, in which the president and the dignitaries come together, they join. And they had uh, some years back set up grand a grand program celebrating uh, the 1000 year of famous uh, Tajik ruling house, the Samani ruling house, which also meant the celebration of artistic celebrations in capital Dushanbe. So this distinguishes Tajikistan from other Central Asian states. Uh, Tajikistan is by and large mostly a mountainous country.
Mountainous terrain.
Yes, very small portion of it is plain. The rest is mountains. They have glaciers and they have water. Varzob, Varzob is the river, name of the river, which flows through Dushanbe capital. Uh, Varzob, Ab is the Sanskrit apa. Sanskrit apa, Ab is it. And Varz is Varz in Avesta means top, upper, bala, up, atop, on the height. You know, the Mughals never called it Tajikistan. They called it Vilayat-i Bala. The Mughal historian, Abul Fazl and others, they have always written it Vilayat-i Bala, means the higher regions, the higher highlands, because when you reach the Khyber. From Khyber, you come down, and then you enter the plains of India. So India is a plain, is on the plains, and above Khyber, Afghanistan, and then Central Asia, beyond Badakhshan mountain, it's all plateau. Therefore, they called it Vilayat Bala. So
Okay.
Vars means Bala, the water coming from top down to the city. And from here, uh, on the northern part of Tehran is a mountain called Al-Borz.
Alborz.
Al-Borz.
Alborz.
It's, it is again in Avestic. Borz is Vars or Bars means top, Bala, mountain. It's again Avestic. There are many names have been written, many names, hundreds of names of places and functions and ceremonies have been retained, which are originally Avistic, have been retained. So, one anybody wanting to understand the civilizational background and culture of Tajikistan has to be well acquainted, conversant with with the Avistic and Pahlavi history of Iran and this region. There have been, I will refer briefly to Shahnama.
Shahnama.
Shahnama is an epic, one of the greatest epics in history. The story of Shahnama is essentially the war between the Iranians and the Turanians. The
Durrani.
Turanians are a mixed form of Turks, Turco-Tajik mixed race pitted against Iranians, the pure Iranian race. So this is a long battle, and Rustam, who is the hero of
Yeah.
Shahnama, he belonged to Sistan, and Sistan is a province partly of Afghanistan and partly of Iran, Nath, Sistan. And he fought against Sohrab or Isfandiar, who belonged to Turan, Isfandiar. And there, and when the final battle between Rustam and Isfandiar takes place, because Isfandiar was told by his father to capture Rustam, bind him in chains and bring him to him, and then he would give him the empire. So for that purpose, he went and had a duel fight with Rustam. That is a very interesting dialogue in Shahnama, one of the finest dialogues as you find sometimes in Shakespeare and others. This is the finest dialogue. There, uh, Rustam tells him that uh, you don't think that I am a child and you will bind me in chains and take me to your king. Then Isfandiar tells him that I promise that I will treat you as a prince, as a dignitary. And then Isfandiar takes the oath. He takes the oath of fire. Very strange. He takes the oath of Zand. Zand is a commentary on Avesta. He takes the oath of Zardosh, the prophet of Zoroastrian faith. Mazando was Zardosh to Dine Bihi. By Dine Bihi means the best religion. Manusha Azaro Farhi. I take oath by Zand, by Zardosh, by fire, that I'll keep you, I'll maintain your dignity. Now you see, how far was the impact of the religion and culture on these people. This is the background of the civilization of Tajiks, who were lost in the great march of history, but they were revived by Stalin in 1924. And look, today, Tajikistan, which was called the underbelly of Soviet Union, is playing the most crucial role in the context of the second rise of Taliban in Afghanistan. I may tell you, I may tell my listeners and viewers that when Taliban recaptured Kabul on 15th of August by sheer force of arms, no country in the world, no power in the world uttered a word by way of support to the Tajiks and the resistance force to the common people. It was only Imam Ali Rahman of Tajikistan. It was only Tajikistan which came out boldly and said that we will never let the resistance force go down, and they are supporting them. Why? Because 27% population of Afghanistan is of ethnic stock. In northern Afghanistan, 93% population is of Tajiks. They are contiguous to Tajikistan. At one time in history, they were one nation. But then, historical, developments of history, ups and downs of history, divided them, separated them. But the Panjshir people have maintained their connectivity with original Tajiks. They are brave people. They are really brave people. And no comparison to their bravery. They fought against Soviet Union. When Soviet Union invaded them, they fought against them. They fought against Taliban, and Taliban tried to overpower them because they are used to independence. This characteristic is very finely explained by Ferdowsi. And the area, this area, I mean the Tajikistan. You may ask me, what was the name of this area and by what name were they called if they were not called Tajikistan? What were they called by till 1924? You see, if we go to the ancient history, in ancient history, and you may have to go even up to Rig Veda.
Yes. That's what
Rig
I was.
Veda has
Yes.
traced, it's the first book which traces the geography of this region. Unfortunately, we don't have scholars well versed in Sanskrit and ancient geography of Sanskrit. It is it's an it's a knowledge. There's a small valley in the Badakhshan mountains. I'm telling you an incident. In Badakhshan Valley, there's a small valley in Badakhshan mountains called Yagnab. Once an article appeared in a Soviet magazine. The heading of the article was The Traces of Sanskrit Language in Yagnab. I was very much fascinated. I got hold of this paper, magazine, and I read it. I, it opened my eyes how language travels. It had traveled how Sanskrit had made deep impact on a vast landmass, and which we never knew, which we only say but never knew. When I went to Dushanbe, and uh, the writer of this article was a Russian scholar named Krumov. His name was Krumov, I still remember. Once I went to Dushanbe and in a meeting, in an assembly, I was introduced to a person, his name was Krumov. I told him, "Are you Professor Krumov?" He said, "Yes." I told him, "Have you written that article on Yagnab, Sanskrit language?" He said, "Yes." And then he hugged me. He said, "Oh my God, at least there is a man in distant mountains of Kashmir who has read my article." I said, "No, Professor Krumov, your article will be read by many, many people." He had very lucidly traced the impact of Sanskrit language which still existed in the Yagnab Valley. So, what I mean to say is that we have to trace the origin of this entire region. For example, northern Afghanistan and Tajikistan, in our Vedas, they are called Tukharistan, Tukhara, and the valley of uh, Samarkand River or the Samarkand and Bukhara region. They are called Sogdiana, Sogd and Sogdiana. So in this way, and what you call Afghanistan today is Aryana of the Avestic and Rigvedic times. So these were the names. They changed with the passage of time. The Greeks, Herodotus, he gave his own names, and these names were accepted by the European historians and writers. in a way that we have now forgotten their ancient names, except with the research scholars who occasionally come across these names. So the the uh, the Tajikistan is not only known for its Avistic traditions, but also for another very important cultural development, and that is the promulgation of Buddhist studies in Tajikistan. In Penjikent, which is another town of Tajikistan, the town after Kujan, they have found the largest lime statue, lime and clay statue of the Buddha, which now remains preserved in the museum of Dushanbe. I have visited Panjikent also, where it was excavated, and I have visited it in Dushanbe also. And by strange coincidence, on the visitors register, I found an entry by our first president, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, in his own hand. He had visited and he had seen this statue and he had appreciated how this statue was preserved. So Tajikistan is another station, another place or region which has contributed immensely to the propagation of Buddhism, which traveled from India via Sawat to across the Badakhshan mountains to Tajikistan, and from Tajikistan northeast towards uh, towards Fargana, and then crossing Fargana towards uh, the eastern Turkestan, and then to Mongolia and China and Tibet and so on, so forth and so on. What you call Xinjiang province, eastern province of China today, was actually eastern Turkestan. And the center of this eastern Turkestan was Urumqi, whereas the center of middle Turkestan was Fargana. And Babur and Timur, they originated from the combined races, combined tribes of Fargana and Urumqi. And they were Uyghurs. So this is the relationship of cultural relationship. Tajikistan has nearly 1,300 kilometers long border with Afghanistan and about 414 kilometers long border with China. Apart from that, it is a long border with Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan. It's it is located in between all these republics. And climatically, perhaps it is the best republic in Central Asia because it has a moderate climate in the sense that Kazakhstan is very cold, Turkmenistan is a desert, but Tajikistan is moderate in winter, slightly cold, and Tajikistan has to be remembered by Kashmiris always because some of the most delicious fruits which we find in Kashmir have come from Tajikistan. When
Tajikistan.
we say they have come from Iran, it's not really from Iran. Alu Bukhara is from Bukhara. Alu means plum. Any plum is called alu in Tajik. Bukhara has come from Bukhara. So, all when Asmi came, visited Kashmir, Asmi was the president of Tajik Academy of Sciences. I accompanied him. And then he asked me the name of the fruit. I said, Seb, Angur, Nashpati, Alu Bukhara. He was wonderstruck. He said, these are Tajik names. You have borrowed it from us, you have taken it from us. Maybe there were some fruits prior to the advent of the Central Asians, but the names that we are common today are from Tajikistan. And the Tajik fruits, both fresh fruit and dry fruit, they are perhaps the best in the world because the main diet of Tajiks is bread and fruit. Very strange. Bread and fruit. Either the watermelon or other fruits, whatever is right. Watermelon. Uh, Sometimes I'm told in Kashmir, we are told that Kashmir is Irani Sagir, the lesser Iran. Or we say that we have borrowed everything from Iran. It is sometimes said, not from Iran, but from Central Asia. The reason why Iran comes first is that the Iranians traveled via Central Asia. They came from Central Asia, from Iran to Central Asia, to Bukhara. It was a famous religious seat. Bukhara is actually the Vihara turned into Bukhara. So, and in Bukhara, you have we had a famous monastery, Buddhist monastery in Bukhara, which has now been converted and called Miri Arab. It's a very beautiful madrasa, exceptionally beautiful madrasa. I have been there in that madrasa. It's a beautiful construction. So they would come to Bukhara, they would come to Samarkand, and from Samarkand, they would come to uh, Kolab in Tajikistan, and from Kolab, they would cross the Amur River by boat, come to Afghanistan, then to Sawat, Jalalabad, and to Sawat. From Sawat, they would enter Kashmir, come to Kashmir, from Baramulla to Kashmir. So this was the route they adopted. Therefore, Kashmiris called them Iranis. Well, they were Iranis, but they traveled via Central Asia. Uh, Mir Sayyid Ali Gilan, Mir Sayyid Ali Hamadani, who
Hamdan.
originated from Hamadan, but he stayed in Kolab in Tajikistan. It is from Kolab that he started his journey into Kashmir with some of his followers. So Central Asia was very, very important. Uh, there is time that Kashmiri scholars try to conduct deep research into our relation with Tajikistan. Uh, if you visit the villages of Tajikistan, you will find absolutely the same atmosphere as you find in a Kashmiri village. The same mud hut. It's now not the mud hut, but same. You see the grass on the top of the
Roof.
uh, bur- uh, say pash, what they call, and the cattle and the cattle shed and there and paddy fields, cattle shed, fruit trees. It's just like Kashmir, absolutely like Kashmir. Uh, I first visited Dushanbe in 1982 on the invitation of President of Tajik Academy of Sciences. It was a 2 month tour. I was given VIP treatment, not not ceremonial treatment, but a very friendly treatment. I was taken as a man from Tajiks. I stayed in private houses. I stayed with friends, not in five-star hotels. I went from village to village. I talked to people. I joked with them because I know their language very well. I shared their good things and bad things. And I found that we had no knowledge of these people and their culture. I wrote my travelogue, which was published and translated into Russian. It won me Soviet and Nehru Award. I was honored, and I became famous with the Tajik scholars, professors, doctors, and other people. And whenever I visited Tajikistan, they would I would be I would still be at the airport. The message would go that Dr. Pandita has come, and I would receive messages. Today you are invited to our place. Today we have a marriage feast. Today they have this, we have that. So I was dragged from place to place and feast to feast. And how strange! There is a great difference in Kashmirian culture and Tajik culture. Let us admit it. Tajiks are what we call Zindadil people. How is a Tajik feast arranged? Let me tell you. A Tajik feast is not a simple thing. Tables are laid, and everything that is cooked is placed on the table. And then the guests come. And then starts the feast. Some take coca, some drink water, some have drinks, light drinks, heavy drinks, whatever, everything goes on. And then suddenly one man stands up with his sitar, and he begins the ghazals of Hafiz and Sadi. And he sings with such passion and animation that the entire crowd of 20, 30, 40 people, they stand up. Men, women, children, they begin to dance. And they recite after him the great ghazals of Hafiz. I myself could not contain myself many times because I am a fan of Hafiz. I consider him the greatest poet that earth has produced. I would dance with them. I would sing with them. And then in between they would eat, cut jokes, repartees, then again continue, again music, again dance from other poets, their local poets. Then folk would be asked to recite from, from Tajik poets. And this business would go on till early hours in the morning. And in early hours, you will find everybody falling flat on his sofa, chair, floor, wherever, and they had to be stirred up at about 12 in the day to get up and prepare themselves going home. This is the Tajik feast. And Tajik dance, surprising, in their local dress, with singing of local poets, singing of great Persian poets, Hafiz, Sadi, and Khayyam. And at many times there is Shahnama Khani. That means recitation of Shahnama. It's a special function, and there is a special season for reciting Shahnama because Shahnama is the pride of Aryan nation of Iran and Central Asia. So, in this way, you find yourself transported when you visit Tajikistan and mix with people. You find yourself transported to another world, to the ancient world, the classical world of poetry, of dance, of drinks, of chivalry, of bravery, of legends. That is what Central Asia is. And by the way, even after Soviet Union was broken, the Tajiks, when they go to the mosque to pray there, they having prayed there, they come out in the veranda, take out from their pocket a bottle and Bismillah.
Like Ghalib's
And
cousin.
and rosary in hand. Bismillah and rosary in hand. Liberated people, my
That's
dear
wonderful,
friend.
sir. I mean, you have almost completed the entire lecture. So I never wanted to interfere because, the flow would have disturbed the entire thing. We don't want to make dams on a flow of a river. So directly coming from a genius like Kashinath Pandita, the personality. So there is not much left. But yes, I remember one particular thing and a conversation between you and your guide in PhD, Zabiul Safa Sahab, Professor Zabiul Safa, who was an eminent personality, world level personality. And when he gave you the topic for research of this, what do you call it, Sufism, and
Sufism.
you were a bit hesitant because you never knew anything about it, and you kept silent, and he said that why you were silent, and then he marked your silence, and he said that you are from India, and we have got the Sufism from Vedanta,
Oh
and if you
yes,
will Vedanta,
yes,
and
yes.
if
Yes,
you will not
he
do the
told me to work on Sufism
so Asif,
and link it up with Vedanta. I
Vedanta.
was young. I told him
So,
perhaps I'm too young. I have not made such a study as yet. And then he said, if you Indians don't do it, who will do it? And when will you do it? And when will you
yes.
become old? So
So
I had to do it.
so
But
that is something that denotes what you said in the start about the we don't know about them, we don't know about, because entire Sanskrit symbols and scriptures, they are gone, they have been taken over by the Romans or the Turks or the people from other places. And Iran, for that matter, was the center of the civilization because of Aryan and Zoroastrian. You said Zoroastrian fire. If we There are no researchers around into the Sanskrit, if we go deeper and deeper and research, maybe we try to find out. But yes, I think in their customs, as you said, in our Kashmir, not only in Kashmir, in Himachal Pradesh as well, in our Himalayan period also, we have this ancient tradition which was in Buddhist also, sitting on the floor and taking the tea and nunchai, like nunchai customs of taking nunchai and lavasa. They are the names for the bread.
yes,
Then the beat, the music beat and the drum, it directly emanates, seems to be emanate from the Samaveda. So something like that happens, and there is a distant connect somewhere subconsciously we feel. Maybe it's on scriptures as well, but it's a matter of researchers. But sir, you talked about Asimov and his great contribution in coming to India, and then about the distance. It was a wonderful narrative, wonderful narrative. In those times, everything was under the control of USSR. But you didn't talk about Babajan Gufarov. Babajan Gufarov was another friend of yours, very close, and he was probably close to Faiz Ahmad Faiz also, Sardar Jafri also, and Nehru. He used to come to India. We have heard about. You are the first. You can
yes.
tell us
You
about it.
see, when I went to Dushanbe, in 1982, Babajan Ghaffaro had died. He was not alive. But I was taken to his graveyard where we prayed the Fatiha, and I was given the whole story about them because they have written their story there. And my guide, Baba, his name was Abdullah Jan, he gave me the whole story of Baba Jan. And then Asimo also told me many stories about Baba Jan Gafaro because they were both of them were students of Baba Jan Gafaro because he was considered Baba Jan Gafaro was considered the father of the nation in a sense of Tajik nation because of his contribution to the freedom and to the modernization and to the development of education and research separate among the Tajiks. He made a great contribution. And of course, Sardar Jafri and uh, I think and Alam Masarur, some these Indian lefts of those of their days, lefts of their times,
Okay.
they had visited. They were visiting these
Leftists.
Tajikistan especially because they thought they had a little bit of knowledge of Farsi and they found it easy for them to exchange ideas with them. Let us stop this topic here, but let
Yes.
me refer to Asimo and Babajan Gafaro. Asimi was a very pet student of Babajan Gafaro, and Babajan Gafaro has written the history of Tajiks. There's a volume, very important history of Tajiks. Asimi was a very brilliant student, a student of physics, but ultimately he shifted to politics and he hailed from Khujand. Khujand is the second important city of Tajikistan. It is located on the banks of river Sea, it's another famous river of Central Asia. Asimi was the head of a large tribe of Khujandis, and these Khujandis wielded political influence in the Soviet period, and they ruled the roost for a long time.
Okay.
And the Southerners, called the Kolabis or Kolab,
Wallabies.
they were angry. They were opposed to the Khujandis for having ruled over Tajikistan for a long time and monopolized the rule there. That was the reason why the 1991 civil war broke out in Tajikistan. The Kolabis were pitted against the Khujandis. And Asmi was a very well known Khujandi. He was a scholar. He was an astute man. He was a very influential man. He was a humanist. He knew English. He had traveled all over the world. Any good quality which you would look in a man, he was comprised of that quality. And he was gunned down by these Kolabis in 1996. I was in Dushanbe in 1996, and a function was organized. It was the marriage of the famous poet of Tajikistan, Sherali Laik, Mir Sherali Laik. I was also invited to that function, and very important persons, including Asami, were invited. We sat in an open place, a huge gathering and a very decent gathering. And then there was dance and music and after Tajiks as they have. This was the time when Taliban captured Kabul,
Oh,
1996. It was summer. Asimi was sitting by my side. He told me in my ear, Professor, if Taliban capture Kabul, what will happen? I said in a low voice, I told him, Professor, if Taliban capture Kabul, we will no more have this dance and music in Dushanbe. He jumped, stood up, and said, Stop, stop, stop. I have to say something. Music was stopped and said, Look what Professor is telling me. Then he recounted this thing. I had left Dushanbe hardly 15 days when and come back to Kashmir when I heard the news that Asmi was gunned down
Oh,
outside his home. And
so
then
sad.
that is another saga, great history, uh, my relations with Asmi family. I had to adopt that family. In simple words, I'll tell you. I had to adopt that family. I have to adopt the entire clan. And we managed their departure to United States of America. 70 of them have got green card and citizenship. And for 6 or 7 years, I continue to visit them in Denver. They are in Denver, based in Denver.
What a
All
great
the
friendship.
5 daughters, 6 daughters asked me. I've got 6 houses in Denver, and each daughter invites me every year.
Oh,
Every year, a blank checks they send it to me.
wonderful.
Now I am old. I am not going anymore. So
Unique.
this is if you believe in Puru Janma, the previous the
Carnation.
life. I will say that I have been a part of that family.
That's so wonderful. So emotional. And that's something very unique. In contemporary times, we don't find such friendships. I mean, you
In
have fought for.
1982, I wrote, after my return from Tajikistan, I wrote a letter to the foreign ministry, for external ministry, a long letter, and I told them, establish links with Tajiks as early as possible. I drew the parameters and I explained why this is important. In one of my visits to Moscow, P.V. Narasimha Rao happened to be the foreign minister, and we were traveling the same plane. His secretary announced, if anybody wants to talk to him, please, minister is available. I said I want to talk to him. So I sat with Narasimha Rao for about more than half an hour. It's 6 hours flight from Delhi to Moscow. So he asked me about my area studies and all that. When I told him about Central Asia and our relations and whole scope, he was surprised. He said, Professor, will you do me a favor? Will you give me a blueprint of how we should deal with Central Asia? Because I will include it in the protocol which we will sign with Central Asia in future. He says, I said, sir, I will do it. Then he said, send it to our ambassador in Moscow. T.N. Cole happened to be the ambassador
Involved.
in Moscow. T.N. Cole sent me a message. Professor, send me your document which you have talked to him. I said, okay, I'll send it to you. I'll bring it with me when I come to Moscow. So I wrote down in Dushanbe, I sat down and I wrote down a 52-page document of how we should establish relations with Central Asia. I tell you, Kol Sahab, our External Affairs Ministry had no knowledge of Central Asia. I, I, not that I wanted to take credit, but I wanted that our people, our country, our nation should develop relationship with another nation of like-minded people who would contribute to our cultural fund to cultural treasure, common cultural treasure. I had in my mind that some Sanskrit scholars should visit there, go there, stay there, study. So these things I wrote. But you know that the government is run by bureaucrats, and bureaucrats are a law unto themselves. They think that these professors, scholars are madhufazul, are useless people.
No, I think it is because of your effort that India has a station there, and we have that aerodrome. I mean, aerodrome over there, and there are many secret intelligence things which are with the Tajikistan India shares. I think it is just because of inputs,
Thank
people
you.
like you who gave inputs to the Prime Minister Narasimha Rao. So Fita Shahi, Lal Fita Shahi, or the red tapeism takes us nowhere. It destroys, like parasite within. People like you, the personalities like you, who have gone so deeper into that genesis and understood their separateness and their spectacularity in the entire area. They are different. They're like Iranians. They're like your Aryans. So that's a great, sir. I mean, what can I ask you? There are a number of stories and there are a number of threads. It will never stop. But we are already 1.5 hour past time, and I
I've
would like
taken a
to.
lot of time.
I can't say anything more, but I certainly probably feel that God may give you a long health and long years to live and health, and so that you do many programs on Sheetalnath conversations, because this certainly is doing a great work. I mean, this certainly is going, the youngsters especially who know about these things, they understand the value, the people, the personalities who have worked for the country, for the community, for ourselves and other things. It's not a small parochial, those LAs that we travel and we, I mean, circumambulate around. It is something greater, wider and wider. As you rightly said, that nobody knows about Tajikistan, although we had a very common past. Uh, uh, Professor Saab, Dr. Saab, it has been a great delight. It was so enlightening. Just you moved into one particular thread. I mean, you didn't change the threads. Had you changed the threads, it would go on and on, like those I mean, mid-30 movies. They go for 11 hours, 12 hours. But it was so enlightening, so enchanting. The effluence, the flow was full of fragrance, full of originality. And today we understood what Tajikistan actually is. For me, also, Tajikistan was like Uzbekistan. It was like other Tans. You say Tan is word from the Stan, the Vedic Tan. But now, today, I think we are enlightened and enriched by the wonderful, profound conversation by, I can't say it is a conversation, it is a storytelling anecdote by Padam Shri Dr. Pandita Saab. Sir, we are very delighted, we are very grateful for your magnanimity that you visited and you felt like visiting Sheetalnath Conversations again, and tell us something about these experiences of Tajikistan. Thank you very much,
Thank
sir.
you, my dear friend, Kolsa. I am very much obliged to you. You found time to spend with me and you listened to my story patiently. And my viewers also, I hope they will appreciate, at least add something to their knowledge. It was a real feast to be talking to you and to be listened. And I'm it gives me just happiness that more and more youngsters will have the aspiration to read and visit and meet and interact with more people in the world. And that is what means Vasudevam Kutumbakam.
Awesome.
The world
Thank
is
you.
one family. I
That-
really believe the world is one family. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saab.
God
God
bless you.
bless you with long life and good health. You bless the entire humanity, your community, your country, and all the people. We are so delighted to have a personality like you. You are the real fragrance. You are the real aroma. You have seen the life yourself. These are all the anecdotes of your own personal encounters with life. That is very rare. That is very rarest of rare.
Thank you very much, sir. Once again,
Thank you very
pleasure.
much.
Pleasure.
Namaskar.
So that was uh, Padam Shri Dr. Kashinath Pandita, rarest of rare personality. He is the vast reservoir sea of knowledge, and his knowledge is not theoretical. It's not learned from the libraries. It is going to the ground, and he has learned everything. He's widely traveled, and his experience is so enriching, so giving. His process is completely Vedic. Give. When you give, when you give the showers of wisdom come back to you. That is the phenomenon of Vedic. And he closed it in a beautiful, beautiful note that you must go and visit the entire world, this entire planet. Humanity is one. This is entirely a Vasudev Kutumbam. That is what the Oriental wisdom says. And that's what we all long for. So this was a once again you can write down to me how did you feel about this lecture, this anecdote. This was not a conversation because I didn't want to intervene because he's such a brilliant personality, and just to intervening his flow would not be good. It would look very shabby. So that's why we have been able to do it. But 1.5 hour scope of time is limited, so we could not go on and on. But we'll see that we'll again bring Dr. Saab, Dr. Pandita, Padam Shri, Dr. Pandita, Kashinath Pandita ji to this show. Wish him good health, and I wish you all the best. Before I go, I announce the next week's show. Next week, we have a wonderful personality, an author of international repute, Rakesh Kolji. He'll be having a lecture, a solo lecture on the Shastra, ancient Shastra warriors of India, of Kashmir. Arisher Shastra warriors of Kashmir. It's a very, very interesting and very, very research pointed topic. And he has asked me, he has probably rather requested that at the end of the topic, if people will come with the questions, he will keep an open session for the question and answer session. So it will be a solo session, a wonderful session. Please mark your time next Sunday, 7
Sure.
p.m. Good luck to all of you. Best wishes. It was great delight to be with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. God bless you.